Welcome, group. Mac T here. And of course, we're going to start right out welcoming our new members. I'm going to toss out a few names that have joined up in the group here just recently. That is Massimo, Michael, Fau, Jose, Lori, Picado, Scott, Michael, Esposo. Well, I'm thinking that's his name. Anyway, Stacy, Danielle, Caitlin, Heather, Clint, John, Holly, Sue, and Lawrence, Ryan, James, Walter, Mike, Hubert, Aiden, Patrick, John, Trevor, Jackie, Tracy, and of course Chris, who just joined yesterday, and Tracy joined just hours ago. So welcome to everybody that jumped in on the Facebook group. And of course, I do want to start out the discussion here real quick, is that I want to take and make a big welcome to a group that I've been part of here lately, and that is the Ford Edge UK group. Now, they just started up. I joined them when they had I think 30, 40 members at the time, and they are up to 130. So the Ford Edge is gaining momentum over in the United Kingdom. So if you want to, you can do a search on Facebook and just type in Ford Edge UK, and they have a couple of neat things going on over there, because they got Matt Clay running the group, and he's a great guy, and I've been, of course, posting there and some other things. But join up on that group if you want to learn about the diesel Ford Edge. Yes, they have that over there, which we are not going to get here in the United States. So if you're curious about what's going on with the diesel version, you can jump on there and learn all sorts of stuff and see what's going in and on with the Edge as far as all the other issues. And trust me, they have pretty much similar issues that we have here in the United States versions, but they don't have any of the first or second gen Edges over there that I'm aware of. So they have the second gen, the 1.5 and 1.0 are definitely not over there, but they are a great bunch of folks to talk to, if nothing else. So Matt Clay, here you go, buddy. You got it all set, and join up on that group. Now, as far as our group, hey, what do we got going on? Well, it seems like I've been busy here monitoring what's going on in the Facebook group. And before I get into all that on the Facebook group, I do want to tell you, if you're posting on the YouTube channel, my notification is not working. I'm not getting notified of any posts, and I will reiterate that if you truly want to get a hold of me, I hang out at the Facebook page all the time, and that is the best way to get a hold of me. Going through the YouTube, it just doesn't seem to work, and I never know who's posting what, because I don't get notifications, and I don't have the time to go through every one of those videos to see who posted what. So that's the best way to do it, is join the Facebook group MACTFORDEDGE and get on there so you can get some questions answered. Now, what do we got going on? We have a lot of things going on. Let's see, we had Ramar. He had pulled out one of the dirtiest throttle bodies I think I've seen on a Ford Edge in a long time. Boy, I hope he posts some pictures of the after on that thing. That's nasty dirty. Anyway, hopefully he's not burning coil in that thing. But he'll get it cleaned up, I'm sure. He's working on it hard. And then, of course, Chris Cosgrave. He's got a favorite color of mine, but it's a first gen. Nearly the color. It's a brown one. Kodiak brown, I think they called that. And he's got a sharp looking 2010 all-wheel drive there. And he just joined that group, so he's doing good. Let's see. We got John Martin is going to have his car PTU checked out by BSG Automotive, which is Ford Tech Make You Loco, which is a preeminent YouTuber for Ford repairs. So, of course, I'm anxiously waiting to see what happens there as far as his experience and everything. And I'm hoping someday their Ford Tech Make You Local, maybe we can get together in the future and just chat, if nothing else. That'd be great on my part. I'd enjoy that. So anyway, one of our more notable members is currently stranded out in the middle of a lake without a paddle, and his boat motor died. And if any of you haven't seen him in a couple more days, we might want to send the Canadian Mounties after him, or a rescue boat or something. I don't know. I hope he has a bucket and a paddle. But Andrew or Steven, you want to make sure that you make it to shore, if nothing else. Otherwise, we'll have to send the Canadian Maritime Force after you, find you. Let's see, Sue. And I think that is, I'm going to use that name because I don't know if that's actually, he says, I think it's an alter ego, as I was told, but changes some fluids and changing the oil and everything. As with all things I did mention, whenever you do buy a used vehicle, and if you buy a used Ford Edge, let's say, always think in the back of your mind, as soon as you buy that vehicle, you're going to have to figure out what your starting point is. And I stress this all the time. The best way to do it is just to change every fluid. That way you know where you're at, okay? And then you don't have to worry about that for a while. So plan your purchase, plan the maintenance, plan the money you're going to have to put out and get the maintenance done. I know we all have budgets, so we got to go ahead and, of course, make sure that we plan things, right? I live by a budget, and so do you folks. So we all got a plan, and that's really what's going to help you make sure you go through it. And, of course, good maintenance keeps the price down for repairs, so we always want to do that. Let's see. Tyler, he managed to find a relic of the past. He found a plastic air fan screen in his Edge. Yes, those things are just, it's like putting a screen door on your blower motor. There are better filters out there to help clean the air, and we all know that. So change it out, toss that thing. I guess you can leave it in there if you really want to, but I don't see a need if you throw a different filter in there like the 1.5 versions have with the more readily available filters. I think it does a better job than that screen. Let's see. And what do we got here? A lot of different things that are being caught up. People doing things. I did post a little bit of a family thing there. I posted a video. MG, as you guys all know, she told me she wanted to learn how to drive. So I told her I know a great way for you to drive, little girl. And, of course, I didn't want to mow the lawn, so I figured why not teach my daughter how to drive by learning how to drive the lawnmower. Two birds with one stone, right? Anyway, yeah, that's my little tidbit on her. She got to mow the lawn, and I got to sit there drinking lemonade watching her. So she did a good job, too, first time. Anyway, Harold, you got yourself a 2013 Ford Edge that you took on a trip. You came out through the mountains and everything with some pretty decent gas mileage. All things being said, all-wheel drive, hills, mountains, whatever you're driving, I think you came out pretty good on your overall mileage there. It wasn't too bad at all. So, keep on motoring and, of course, keeping everything going. Let's see. One posted note was a little bit of information on the grill shutters on the new 2015 Plus Ford Edge. Yes, they do have grill shutters on them, and they do close the grills to help with the engine heating when it's cold outside, and then, of course, aerodynamics and then airflow as far as cooling. So if you want to, read that article, and it'll explain a lot more on it than what I'm going to do here. Let's see. We got John. He posted his main ride up and then his other main rides, and I tell you, he drives some pretty big trucks. So we got to be happy with all the truck drivers out there and tow trucks and everything else. Those guys work hard, and we're glad for them when our Edge breaks down. And let's see, Justin. Oh, Justin, I hate it whenever I see a member have an accident. And I always, the first thing we should all ask, are you all right? We don't want anybody to get hurt, but in this world, you're going to have an accident. Sometimes it's not a matter of if you're going to have an accident, but when. And I think it was, who was it? Was it Jan? He's got 2 accidents, like just got his car fixed and boom, got another one. You know, sometimes he got bad luck too, but we do not want to see anybody hurt. So keep the antennas up, folks. Stay alert. Pay attention. You got to plan ahead when you're driving, and sometimes you just can't. So it just pops up, and there's not much you can do. But I will state in this case, also in others, those dash cams, folks, you might not think they're not worth it, but you spend a few, you know, $100-200 on it, get a good one. I went through the cheap ones already. I spent money and it's running good. But those dash cams, you know, they ain't gonna tell no lies. So you know, make sure that whatever you do, you take and make sure that you, of course, get a dash cam, because it will help your story, and that's really a good thing to have. Let's see. Richard says, yes, and that is the law, Richard. I agree with that. If you see vehicles on the side of the road, tow trucks, cop cars, a lot of states got rules that say slow down and move over, folks. Trust me, you're not in that much of a hurry, and the amount of seconds you're going to gain is going to be negligible compared to the life loss. So you want to just slow down, let the people have plenty of space. Nothing is that much of a hurry in this world. And I drive a lot, and I know. Leave early enough. You get there, plenty of time. Leave early. And then if you are late, you're not going to make it up by speeding. Guarantee it. Tried it, ain't going to work. Anyway, let's see. Michael checked his oil, and he's got, I don't know, 9,000 miles on his, I forget what he had, Castrol Edge Full Synthetic. It might be an oil I try in a later usage, because I'm always switching my oils, right? Every oil change is a different oil. I keep the oil filter pretty sturdy. I use a Boss oil filter. But I'm building a Ford Edge Duratec 3.5 oil use database. And that's what I'm building, folks. That's why you see me using so many different oils, because I'm running them and then I'm testing them. And we're coming up with whatever the results are based on city and highway. So it's a long-term project. It's going to take me probably at least another 8-10 months before I come up with a bunch of different oils I can throw on there. And then I'll just build on it from there. But I'll put something together and review the oils and weights and viscosities, which oil did better. And I will tell you right now, I'm using that Red Line oil, and I know that stuff is expensive, folks. It is not a cheap oil. It is a Class 5, which is even higher than NAM's oil, synthetic oil. And I'm going to tell you, my fuel mileage has gone up, and the engine's quieter. Don't know, that's my experience with it right now, but all I can say is, wow, this stuff is great. And I've just been driving it, so I've been having a good time with it, and my gas mileage has been just astronomical. So let's see, what do we got here? John, oh no, I'm a bit late. No, you're not late. I always start out talking a little bit about other things in the group, Jonathan. I'll get to it. Give me about another 5 or 10 minutes. We'll jump into the 2.0 and the 2.7 water pump. Let's see, what else do we got? Who is that? Justin says that he had to add oil at 5,000 miles of Mobil 1 synthetic. And you know, folks, I go by hours. So, Justin, I do not know how many hours you have on your Edge, because really that's the truth be told. I know that my wife's Edge Blueberry has had a vacation since it was summer, but that Blueberry is going to be starting mom bus duty again for the school year on Wednesday, which means she will be idling the heck out of that thing, and of course that will test that Red Line motor oil I got in her Edge right to the umpteenth degree. So we'll see how that turns out and how it runs, but you know, hours, not miles, folks, hours. How long has that engine been running, and did you run it the equivalent of 200 hours at 5,000 miles? That's what you got to ask yourself, because you will use oil. There's especially the 1.5 with that baffle issue and evaporating oil out through the breather and into the intake. You got it, oil consumption issues there. In nearly 600,000 miles, I've never had an Edge burning oil, ever. Never had it. Now, it does use oil, and that's usually because it goes through the intake. So, but I've never had one actually where pistons, rings, and valves, were leaking. It was causing blue smoke out the tailpipe or anything. So, I'm going to say it's the breather all the time, folks. It's getting sucked into the intake. And that is just the nature of the beast on the Duratec 3.5 and that 3.7. So you want to make sure that you do, of course, keep those breathers going in that PCV valve, because engine pressure is your enemy. Let's see. We got Hoss Cartwright. Now, I remember a Hoss Cartwright, and he was in Bonanza. Don't you guys remember Bonanza? Holy cow, that was like the primary show to watch when I was a kid. Anyway, they wanted the big guy in there was called Hoss Cartwright. So I don't know if this is his real name or not, but we're gonna go with it. Anyway, of course, he is working on the brakes, and as I said before, real quick, always on the brakes. When those brakes start wearing poorly, because of buildup of rust underneath the clips on the caliper brackets. The rust builds up, and then it gets tied up on the clips, and the ears of the brake pads do not move properly. And then also the slider pins start getting dry from lack of grease. And what happens is the caliper piston starts pushing on the piston side against that brake pad, the inside brake pad. The outside one freezes and locks in. It don't move. So now the inside pad is the one doing all the braking, while the outside one doesn't do anything. And that's what happens. And sometimes it actually wears, front to back at an angle. Okay, so then it'll wear one end of it more than the other end, and you'll see that happening too. And as I stated in the post, the best way to avoid this is yearly cleaning. And I do not mean wire brush. I mean file that down and get that rust off of there. And then maybe even spray paint it a little bit to help protect it. But use a good brake grease. I utilize the CRC ceramic brake grease on mine, and I don't have any problems. You guys can test whatever you want to use. But I've been using the CRC ceramic brake grease. High temp, and it's been working out great, and I don't have brake problems. Everything's wearing smoothly. So do what you got to do, but I do recommend yearly tear down and reassemble just to lube everything up, clean rust off, and then your brakes will last twice as long, almost, right? You just want to make sure you get them there. So yeah, okay, Richard, where's little Joe? Yeah. But anyway, Orisha, she posted wow, those are bad tires. Yeah, check your tires, folks. Never know what they look like. And she posted a couple of pictures, some really nasty tires. So I have a feeling, according to her post, Monday morning, guess where she's going to be standing? Yep, in the tire shop, buying new tires. So I can't wait to hear what kind of tires she gets. I bet you there's something cool, right? So we're going to see what she posts, that she got new shoes on her car, and off she goes. Cam Fisher posted the brakes. Now, I know I did at least 2 videos on this little doohickey here we call a low-frequency noise dampener. And, of course, if you don't know how to get it off, watch my videos on MACTFORDEDGE. There is an easier way other than vice grips, guys. I know, yeah, I'm just making fun. But, there's little Torx that goes in the end. There's a little cap, you pop it off, put the Torx in the end, and then undo it. Works really simple. And then you can watch that video where I also was doing that brake job, and I lost my mind for a second, and I did the lefty-loosey, righty-tighter completely wrong, and I tightened mine right off. Yes. I turned it the wrong way, and those little bolts are easy to break. And of course, that was mechanic fail 101 right there, and I left it in. I didn't edit it out, so you guys know I leave the bad stuff in with the good stuff. But anyway, yeah, I ended up buying a new pin kit for that one. But those are low frequency noise dampeners. They keep the grinding sound from occurring when your brakes in the morning and everything else, you're backing up and all this other stuff. Just keeps the noise down and makes your Edge quieter. And you can put those kits on your 2007 through 2010 Edge also. They did not start installing them though until 2011. So that's where that's at. Let's see. John, he's got himself a fantastic first gen Sport Edge, and man, they detailed the heck out of that thing. You see how clean that engine compartment is? I asked you if I could eat my dinner off of it. Holy cow, that thing looks fantastic. Now, I'm embarrassed to even open my hood. Holy cow, that thing looks sharp. Let's see, what else do we got? Oh yes, I posted. And if you folks see in the banner, you see the MAF sensor. And if you didn't know if cleaning your MAF sensor is worthwhile, all you have to do is look at that picture and you will tell just by looking at it that it's worthwhile to clean that MAF sensor. Okay? Got a hair in my mouth or something. But anyway, we take and clean that with the MAF cleaner. Do not use carb cleaner. Don't use throttle body cleaner, folks. MAF cleaner is nothing more than electrical spray cleaner, okay? You want to be gentle on this thing because it's 100, I don't know, 130, 150 bucks and has a core charge, okay? Yeah, they're not playing with this part. So be careful with it. Don't go in there with things and start prying around because you're going to break them. And I did a video on that too. Let's see. Window shades. Tanner did ask a question on window shades, and I did post a couple of videos up about the what do they call it, that ceramic film they put on the front windshields. It's supposed to reduce the heat by what, 40-50% or something like that. It's clear, you can see through it, and it blocks the heat from the sun on through your front windshield. So that might be an option, but it does cost a couple of those duckies. Okay, it's not a cheap thing, but you know, maybe overall it's a worthwhile thing, especially if you live out in some really hot climates, Arizona, Texas, all this other stuff, Florida, down south, and even the Middle East or any place else. It'll keep that heat down and you won't have a problem. And let's see, who posted that? That was, let's see, we got Kyle. His Edge is overheating. I said it overheated a couple times, and of course we're saying that it's probably the fans working intermittently. Standard routine, check the fans, check the fans, check the fans. You know, I've never had a fan fail on me yet. Of course, you got to use them. I'm usually doing 70 mile an hour down the highway, so my fans don't run. But, you know, do I expect my wife's to fail? Yeah, she idles all the time, so I fully expect hers to fail someday. Let's see, what else do we have here? We got Howard. He joined up on the group, and of course he went and got his car through CarMax and everything. He's been doing a little bit of work on it and cleaning it up and everything else. Transmission was at 90,000 miles. Time to get that fluid changed there, buddy. You want to make sure you get that done as soon as possible, because that 6F35 transmission, yes, 6F35, not the 6F50. The 2.0 turbos came with a 6F35. That's the same transmission they put in the Ford Escape. And I tell you what, folks, why would they put a lesser transmission in a heavier car with turbo? It don't make sense. Don't make sense at all. Now, not a good transmission to be doing that with, in my opinion. But it is what it is, right? Let's see, what else we got? We got a lot of different other things. Folks join, and of course I do want to get to the main part of this. So we will, without further ado, go into our coolant pump. Yes, the Ford Edge 2.0 Duratec turbocharged Edge. Yes, what do we got going on with the coolant pump? Well, here's one thing I want to tell you all. This is not your 3.5 or 3.7 Duratec design, folks. Guess what Ford did and where they put the coolant pump? The coolant pump is not internal to the engine. Yay! So those of you who own the 2.0 and the 2.7, that coolant pump is not internal to the engine. Talk about a hallelujah, right? All right, but it is, a little bit easier to get to, less costly. So yes, there is an improvement on that aspect, but as with all things, then you got turbos to worry about, and of course turbos cost money. So you give and take, right? So whatever we got going on there, first thing you want to do with that 2.0 and the 2.7 is you're going to have to drain the coolant, because once you do, it's all going to come out. So you're going to take your engine cover off, yes. And let's see, what else we got? Ford specified coolant for these engines for the 2015 Plus right now is a WSS-M97B44-D. That is a specified coolant for the Ford Edge 2.0 and 2.7 Duratec. And then of course you remove that cover on that 2.0, which ain't too terribly barred, right over the engine cover. And of course Ford does still utilize the coolant pump as the engine idler pulley for the serpentine belt. Yes, they still use it. It is the solid mounted part of it. They do have a tensioner on it, but they do wrap it around there. And keep in mind, it is a friction thing, and it only looks like it only covers 40% of the wheel. The belt does. So we're only looking at about 40% of the actual wheel coming in contact with the belt. So there's not much contact there, folks. Whereas the other pulleys and the tensioner has maybe 10% contact. But you will have to take and remove a few things over there on the passenger side of the Edge to get access to that water pump, or coolant pump as they call it. And there are 3 bolts that you will have to remove. Now, once you get you want to get the serpentine out of the way, take it all the way off. You don't need the coolant on the belt, because that's going to cause some problems. Now, let's see, specialty orange coolant, John says. Good. I haven't covered the coolant yet, but that is the coolant that you'd be actually working with. But there are 3 bolts on that pulley head, so you want to make sure you take and undo those 3 bolts. Key to the whole thing, because you're going to need the room. It's going to be tight in there, so you're going to have to make room. And then, of course, once you do get all that taken care of, you got to make sure that you cover the AC belt and everything else. You want to go ahead and, of course, release that. So the AC belt, waterproof plastic, remove the bolts for the coolant pump. And then, of course, once you get those bolts off the coolant pump pulley, which is a flat, smooth pulley from what I'm seeing here based on that, you remove those bolts, and then you expose, here's why you pull it off, behind that pulley are 3 more bolts you have to take off. So you can't get there from here. You got to take the pulley cover off first so you can get to the other 3 bolts that actually hold the coolant pump on. Now that coolant pump does have a gasket, so you're going to have to make sure you have a gasket handy in order to take and replace it, because that gasket, or O-ring as they call it, is going to have to be replaced. Now, when you get that, you get the new O-ring, and then you get the new pump, right? The new coolant pump. You take it all off. It's simple, easy. It's mounted right above and just back from the alternator on the 2.0. So when you go to remove it, it'll be just up and back just a little bit from that towards the firewall, but it'll be higher than the alternator but back. So clarify that. You get that out, get those 3 bolts, discard that O-ring, get a new O-ring and a new water pump. Hopefully it comes with a new O-ring, I would think, but just make sure you check when you buy the part. You want to lubricate that O-ring with some clean coolant before you do install it. And then, of course, when you do install it, you want to torque those bolts on that pump down to 89 pound-inches. Yes. And you can do the math what that comes out to. And for you Canadians, that's 10 Newton meters. Okay, there you go. Cover the Canadians too. Right, Stephen? You still on the boat? Stephen, do you need help? You still stuck out on that boat? He's trying to fix his Honda engine out in the middle of the water. At least it's a quiet job. Anyway, we got that, and you got that all put back together. You put 89 foot or inch pounds on there for the mounting. You put, of course, the pulley back on there and bolt that back up there. And I don't have torque specs on that, but you know, let's just go the German method, good and tight. And of course, put those 3 bolts back in there. Then you go ahead and you put your belt back on, and then get it threaded in. And if you don't remember how it threads in, just look on your hood, because your hood will show you how the belt goes back on as a diagram. So it's real simple there. But it's really a thing, but Ford does specify a procedure for coolant system draining. Okay, you drain it, and then of course they're talking about a vacuum filling. I guess this is the best way to actually take and fill it through a vacuum fill. It'll suck all the air out there through. So DIY, I don't have any 2015 plus to say yay or nay on that vacuum filling, but you make sure you squeeze them air bubbles out of there, check it out, run it a little bit, and make sure it's running and not overheating or anything, and you got air trapped in there. So check your thermostat. You know, you might want to bleed things out that way too. But that's a pretty simple process on that. And then what else do we got? We got the 2.7. So let's go back and of course do the 2.7. And the 2.7 is not much different, folks. It uses the same coolant, and of course has the same draining principles and everything associated with it as the 2.0 did. And of course the same process is involved in both of them. But let's see, what do we got? We got our Necessity dry belt. Here it gets a little more difficult. Okay, now with the 2.7 we have an access issue. Now you get the dry belt off of there and that's fine, but then you got to have a jack underneath the engine ready to go, folks, because guess what? You're going to have to put boards under it, or a special jack engine holder, as Ford says, because you're going to have to remove that motor mount on the passenger side in order to get access to the water or coolant pump. Okay, so you're also going to have to remove the thermostat in order to do all this. So a little more complicated on that 2.7 V6, because now we're moving an engine motor mount, so you got to support the engine, otherwise it'll fall. So you got to support that engine up underneath there, and the thermostat does have to come out. Now again, there are 4 bolts with a pulley, and it is a rib pulley, so it will have the grooves in it. But you're going to have to remove those 4 bolts off of the coolant pump pulley in order to get your other access. So now you've removed the engine mount, got the engine jacked up so you can get access to it, and everything's telling me that it's going to be a tight spot. Okay, got room but not a lot, so be ready to work with small fingers, right? So you're going to go through that, of course, going to get that all done, and then you got to release the clamp and disconnect the coolant hose on it. Yes, there's going to be a coolant hose with a clamp, little pinch clamp, that you're going to have to release when you go ahead and of course get ready to do this coolant change. So you release that, and then of course you're going to have more coolant coming out, so make sure you got a pan underneath the jack. You see where we're going with this? Be ready for a mess, folks. Be ready for a mess. Try to pre-drain it and everything else you can, but you're still going to end up with coolant on the floor. That's all there is to it. But once you do get to that point, you don't want to damage the grommet or twist that pipe or hose around too much, because then you could cause leakage there. So make sure you're careful. Then you got to remove the bolts on the coolant pump, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts on this coolant pump, and it is a long pump. Okay, it's almost like a U shape in a way, and then of course you got the drive system, and then you got the other end that goes into it, and then it's got a hose, a metal hose that goes up in an L shape to it also. And I'll post some pictures on the YouTube of what I'm talking about here on this coolant pump, and of course you'll see all that going there. But there are looks like a total of 8 bolts, or maybe one's a guide pin, but it looks like about 7 of them or so. So anyway, you're going to have an O-ring. You got to replace that O-ring on there too. But there is a grommet to it, and of course to the housing, remove the grommet from the coolant pump housing if it sticks into the housing, because you're going to need that later. And then of course coolant pipe, inspect everything. You want to make sure everything's good, and of course you're going to have your gaskets that you're going to be needing, so you want to make sure that you do check all those out. And again, oh my Lord, I'm not even going to try to describe the gasket. When you guys see the picture, you're going to laugh. Oh Lord, it is shaped like a male appendage. Oh Lord. Anyway, that's enough visual. But anyway, you're going to do that. Yes, I'm not lying, folks. When you see the picture, you're going to laugh. But anyway, that is the gasket that you're looking for. And of course, you want to make sure that the grommet is clean and everything else. Flush it out, clean it out with some coolant. Make sure it is not contaminated, otherwise you will have a leak. And then of course coolant pump and the fasteners, you got to torque fasteners 1 through 7 to 89 inch-pounds. Okay, now this pump's going to get difficult, because now you got to get a torque wrench in there. You got to go to 89 inch-pounds, and then you got to do a stage 2. Remember what you do on the intake manifold gasket, that plenum? Yeah, buddy, now you got to do a 45 degree after you get it to the 89 inch-pounds. So that means you're going to have to torque those bolts down another 45 degrees after you hit the 89 inch-pounds. So be ready to do that, and make sure you have your calculator set for that 45 degrees. And then of course, let's see, fastener number 8. Fastener number 8 is right next to the inlet tube for the coolant, and that is the one that you will not torque to 89 inch-pounds. Yes, one, you do not torque to 89 inch-pounds. Do not mess this up. And it is not near the inlet. I'm sorry. It is the big one that is at the bottom of the furthest point towards the firewall. But you can't miss it, because it will be the larger bolt. Okay? And it is only torqued to 18 foot-pounds, which means it is, I think if I did my math right, that's more. Yes, that's more torque. Okay? Foot-pounds is more than inch-pounds. So therefore, you're torquing this bad boy, since it's bigger, down harder. Okay? And then of course you got to torque that down, but you don't need to do the 45. So let me clarify this. You do bolts number 1 through 7 to 89 inch-pounds, and then you torque them at 45 degrees. Fastener number 8, and you got to make sure you got the schematic for this. Fastener number 8 is the one that you do to the 18 foot-pounds, and no 45, just 18 foot-pounds period. So it's a larger bolt, so it'll be very obvious. So you got to keep track of all your bolts so that you got them all in the right spot. But since this one's larger, it should be a no-brainer that it don't fit. So you want to make sure you do that. But to clarify that, yes, you want to make sure you do pay attention on this. A little more to this 2.7, but again, this water pump is external. It is not internal, which is a bonus on that aspect, which means this is a DIYer's job if you really want to get down to it. Again, you connect that coolant hose back with the clamp and everything else, and then as you're going through, you put the pulley back onto it, mounting those 4 bolts, and of course putting them in, and those 4 bolts will be torqued down to 89 inch-pounds onto the pulley. so you're good to go there. And I'm pretty certain that the 2.0 is 89 inch-pounds also, just to clarify. Then you got to install your new thermostat, and of course go through that, and then of course your engine mount has to be mounted back up again, which means you may have to jiggle and move the engine around to get that all bolted back up, and you'll have to find the specs on that for torquing that down to get that done. And then of course you're going to have to reinstall your accessory drive belt and make sure that is all put back together. Again, refer to your Ford Edge hood for the directions of the serpentine belt and how to install it. That way you can get that done. And again, last but not least, you fill the cooling system, and according to Ford, it is a vacuum fill. Now, I don't know what the vacuum filling is going to require. Maybe some of you know, but let's just say you do it at home. Again, I reiterate, make sure that you do get the air bubbles out, and there's probably ways you can do this at home. I'm sure there's devices with a rubber plug and some air. We could form a vacuum, or a wet dry vac for that sake. But either way, we can vacuum that out if people get up on it enough to figure it out. But they are stating a vacuum filling, so I don't know if this is a way to get more business or what, but it never hurts to double check on that aspect. But again, that is pretty much it. I do like the fact that the new engines, of course, with the exception of the 3.5, which has that internal water pump, and we're always waiting for that shoe to drop, right? So we don't want that to happen, but keep your coolant clean. And I'm going to tell y'all, folks, that if you want these water pumps, even though they're external, to last longer, it's always a good thing to change that coolant a lot. Now, these are turbo engines, so I'm going to tell y'all that it's probably really necessary to change that coolant fairly often. I did not look up the Ford recommendations on that. I'm sure some of you will post on the Facebook group exactly what that is. I did not research that part of it. But as far as the coolant, I would recommend, if I had a turbo, I wouldn't go more than 40,000 miles on the coolant there either, because that's some pretty hard work in coolant, trying to keep everything cool and operating and that pump lubricated. So, you know, I may be wrong, but I'm going to say I'd go with a good frequency there. Let's see. We got a bunch of other comments there. We had a few folks joining in and watching this. I hope that I didn't bore you all to death as far as what I was covering on this Facebook group live today. But that is the pumps, and of course leave your comments in the Facebook group, and of course YouTube comments if I do see them. Again, I can't stress the YT notifications are not working, so I don't know if you post there. So the Facebook group is probably your better choice to get a hold of me and leave your comments, and we welcome all new members every day with a specialized greeting for each one or two or three, how many ever join. And I don't think any other group gives that type of greeting for every member that joins. And we like to keep it a family thing, and keep in mind our rules for our Facebook group surround what we learned in kindergarten. Yes, be nice, share, and of course be happy, right? So we always have a good time in our group, and we like to keep it that way and keep it friendly. So that being said, this is MACTFORDEDGE on Facebook, and I do want you to join up in this Facebook group. If you do get a chance, just all you have to do is hit join, and we'll let you in for the, to join up with the fun and everything else that goes there. And also, don't forget YouTube. Join up on YouTube and subscribe and hit that like button and help me out there, folks. More subscribers, the better. I do put new videos out all the time, so I do like to let you get notified, and the only way you're going to get notified is if you subscribe. And of course, I do have that donate button, that blue button on PayPal top right. If you feel like you want to help donate towards my videos to help me sustain some of the costs in this, then that's fine too. If you don't, then enjoy the videos. It's not going to hurt me, but any help is of course appreciated. And last but not least, my feet hit the floor today, and I'm having a great day, folks. And I want you to have a great day, too. And with that being said, we got Mercy Girl, who's going to toss out a couple of one-liners at you. And then we got the Band of One. Go to his Facebook page. One day I will get him to make a group. Yes, Kevin, I'm talking about you, buddy. But anyway, we will have a group one day, and then, of course, it'll be tagged right into my Facebook group. So you can listen to his great music whenever you want. Download it. Listen to it in your Ford Edge while you're driving down the road and everything else. But again, have a great day, and I'm going to do something really strange. I'm going to do the uncomfortable turning off the button part right now.
Thank you for watching MACT's videos, and remember to like and subscribe. This is a Mercy Girl production.